someplace underneath. Hello out there in listener land. Just jumping on here quickly to welcome you to the interview portion of our season 4 of Someplace Underneath, WTF LDS. I truly could not have reached a level of understanding of these crimes without these guests coming on, and I am incredibly grateful for their courage in standing up against a giant machine like the corporatized church industry. We're starting off with our interview with Jordan and McKay, whom I reached out to over a year ago at this point, and who has used their platform regularly to speak out and to discuss personal experiences as well as implementing Jordan's mental health professional background to discuss some of the situations that occur inside the church. If you want to check them out, they're over at Viral Virtue with Jordan and McKay on YouTube. If you're listening to our feed and want to see some faces, our faces, some other faces, or, I don't know, just want to experience the incredible colorways that Amber and I are sporting on any given week, you can go over to our baby YouTube channel at Someplace Underneath, where there will be a lot of a wrap-up about our coverage of the crimes of the LDS Church, and as well as a lot of new content covering missing and exploited people, as well as corruption, corporate corruption, especially of all kinds.
Thank you guys for doing this. I really appreciate your time. You seem like you're incredibly busy with like real jobs, real grown-up jobs. And doing this on the side is really cool. Love your channel. I've followed you guys for a long time. I've been really immersed in LDS stuff. Unintentionally, I think I mentioned that in the email. It just kept appearing in cases we were covering for the we're on our almost 101st episode, so we haven't been doing it that long, but man, it just kept showing up. And when we were starting the show, I didn't know the difference between LDS and like Jehovah's Witness and all that. They would always get kind of confused, and yet it still just kept popping up over and over again in these really weird places. And so this is kind of why we directed the path this way.
Yeah, like crumble cookies. I had no idea. I think it was from your show, and you're like, it's always going to come back to crumble. And I was like, everything.
Will always come back to crumble.
Yeah, do all things start and end there? Yeah, and also today, actually, I was just looking up stuff about BYU, and I didn't realize that Ken Jennings was an alumni there.
Oh, God.
Alumnus?
Yeah.
Alumni. Which one? I don't remember.
Alumnus, I think, singular.
Alumnus. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously,
it's everywhere. You can't avoid it.
But yeah, it just seems to just crop up a lot. So we're kind of like just sort of separating, trying to like find these different limbs of like how and why that happens, and why so many of the cases we've covered that involve missing and exploited people and women come back to it so often. So yeah, just having you guys' input and your insight means a lot to us. We really don't want to provide any like false information. We just love to also touch, surface level stuff and then direct people to you guys for more in-depth conversations.
That's great. We're happy to help.
Cool. First and foremost, I would love to know if you guys met in school. Did you meet at University of Utah?
We actually didn't. We met in high school.
Oh.
A little
twist. We didn't date in high school, but we met in high school and we connected while he was at BYU I and while I was at the University of Utah.
Okay, so McKay,
technically right before.
Technically right before,
I went to BYU Idaho.
So you went to BYU Idaho. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
I was looking at the questions. I was like, oh, they don't know. That's kind of what I would hope, that people don't know.
Listen, I was looking up school rankings before this, and my two colleges I went to were far lower on like a bunch of the like school like best schools for this and this. It was like all of mine were way lower than BYU and BYU Idaho. So, I mean, they seem like there's at least some good majors and stuff there. Would you say that's accurate?
For BYU Idaho, I find that extremely hard to believe.
Well, BYU Idaho was a little bit lower. I will say that.
like my whole family goes there. I'm not trying to dog on everybody,
No, of course.
but it's pretty subpar education if you ask me. And then on the flip side, BYU Provo, like the main BYU, just announced today that they are going to build a medical school.
Oh.
So it's pretty
Much more prestigious
yeah.
to get in, like comparatively to like much harder to get into BYU Provo, like much more like anybody and everybody gets into BYU Idaho. So like it's ironic that they're not that far apart, but they're perceived quite differently.
Yeah.
And the Provo branch was the first one, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it was the first one. BYU Idaho didn't exist until like the early 2000s, I think it was, because previously it was Rick's College. It was just a 2-year college. And then once, I don't even know if the church owned it at that point, but the church got involved. They called it BYU Idaho and they made it a 4-year university.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
kind of weird.
So I have a question about science at a religious university. How does that work? Like, do they teach, life begins at when, the sperm enters the egg, or creation, like anything in history? How does that covered?
In the they call the like entry level classes, they call them foundations at BYU Idaho. I'm not really sure exactly if it's the same exact thing at BYU Provo, but like the first like 2 weeks of those classes, especially regarding science, are like apologetics for how you can be in a career in science and also be a firm believing member of the Mormon Church. So essentially where they kind of draw from is from people like Marion G. Romney, who is Mitt Romney. He's related to Mitt Romney. I can't remember in what capacity, like grandfather or
Something like
probably his dad, with how old Mitt Romney is. But basically they're just kind of like, a lot of people in the past were really anti-science and completely against the ideas that we hold true today. And there are ways to find absolute truth, which is through the restored gospel. And there are revealed truths that we are able to find and prove through the physical world that you can also prove through the restored gospel. Hi, beloved.
Sorry. Your
Oh,
cat's
hi, I love your
participating,
cat.
apparently.
Yeah. So it's really interesting how that works. All I ever took was foundations, like science or whatever, because I wasn't.
You weren't doing science.
I didn't do a lot of. I wasn't into like biology or any of the things like that, and I wasn't in school for very long, and didn't even end up graduating. But
Cool.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see how.
Even in art, because remember,
Oh,
you had that
my
art
God,
class
it
where they
was-
blur
yeah.
out the photos.
Yeah, they had like a whole lesson about how nudity in art is not inherently pornography.
Okay.
And then even in like some of the anatomy textbook pages, they would blur the reproductive organs of people. It was just,
Really?
But like, tell me how you're
It is
getting a good
basically-
education if you can't even like look at the photo, like the biology photos in the textbook. Like that's concerning.
Wow.
Well, especially because as young adults, and you guys have covered this a lot, but that it is actually damaging and harmful probably for a lot of people to not understand genitalia and going into sexual relationships and not knowing much about their bodies or their partner's bodies. And so I feel like covering them up in college seems kind of, I don't know, counterintuitive.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it contributes to the infantilization of the Mormon population at large. It's really popular for the adults even to sing. Not that there's anything wrong with singing children's songs or whatever. I'm not really singing Blippy because I want to. It's just because I hear it all the time with our child. But like they really kind of glamorize the children's songs and those kinds of things, and then this kind of just
Well, it
contributes.
never clears up. Like you never have and like parents don't teach their kids sex ed from my experience. So you have like full grown women coming to me like that don't unfortunately know their own anatomy, not by necessarily any fault of their own, but they've never had any experiences where it was like, oh, that's what that looks like, or that's abnormal, or this is normal. And like all of that goes out the window.
And on that, Jordan, so you do work in the mental health field. I don't want to get your titles incorrect. Do you mind telling me?
Oh yeah, I'm an associate licensed therapist in Utah, and so the only clients that I see are all over the state of Utah. And so I primarily work with individuals, and I do a lot of couples work also.
And you studied at University of Utah.
I did.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Both my undergrad and my master's came from there.
So, I'm looking through what I can find about all these different schools out here, and it seems like maybe you can break this down a little bit, but it seems like University of Utah isn't as enmeshed inside of LDS culture. Would you say that's true, or is there maybe a more balanced amount of students who are or aren't LDS?
I would say it's a lot more balanced. Like when I went there for my undergrad, it was kind of the joke that like University of Utah is like the Jack Mormon school. Like it's where you go if like you couldn't get into BYU because like you couldn't follow the honor code or you were in trouble or for whatever reason. But
it's really ironic because it was the actual school that Brigham Young founded first.
I mean, it was like literally Brigham Young school, but I mean, the irony of that alone. But they do try to, just like you say, kind of enmesh the experience because the University of Utah does have its own like institute building that is like massive, and they funnel clearly lots of money into the U as well. And there's a lot of like notable Utah Mormons who went to the University of Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it's different, but if you're Mormon and you go to the U, like you will find your people. Like it was not hard for me to find like the Mormon crowd, but there is much, much less. Like BYU, there's no question. Everybody's Mormon. There's no wondering.
And if you're not, then you are expected to just uphold the honor code.
Right. And it's like really rare that you encounter somebody at BYU who isn't Mormon. Like there's reasons for it, but it's like sports and stuff, but it is fairly rare. But the University of Utah, you never know. Like there's a good chance that the person is Mormon, but it's like it's not as high as BYU.
Just based on location,
yeah.
In essence.
Was there any animosity between the Mormon and non-Mormon students at your school?
I don't know about animosity, maybe. I mean, maybe a little bit from the non-Mormon perspective. Like it is still like, it's very automatic. Like it's just so much a part of the culture that if it's like you're not Mormon, you're kind of, even if you're at the University of Utah, you're still kind of in the out group almost because it's like the jokes and the culture. And like if you don't have that kind of background, even if you're like an ex-Mormon, like you still kind of feel left out a little bit. But like steep rivalry between like the University of Utah and BYU, even ironically. So it's like, but the University of Utah is more balanced. There might be some people who disagree, but I felt like it was anyway.
And then on the flip side at BYU Idaho, it was like seeing a shiny Pokemon because there's no sports at BYU Idaho.
No.
So basically, because there are so few of them, I remember my freshman semester, the president had announced that there were like 17 non-Mormon students.
Wow.
Wow.
So then it's an opportunity to befriend them and convert
And
them.
make them Mormon.
Sure.
That's scary.
Which is kind of a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
You guys also have, I just said you guys as though you are representing BYU. I'm sorry. There's also a Hawaii branch, right?
Yeah.
Is that a newer school?
I honestly don't know a lot about it. There are very few. I know 2 people that have gone, but from most of the stuff that I've heard about it, it's mostly just like basically taking a gap year. That not a lot of people end up at BYU Hawaii that are not from the islands.
Interesting.
And I don't know. It's kind of in the same vein as BYU Idaho. And the church just owns a ton of property on the island. So
yeah.
Well, there's also this
It's
weird
kind of
like
nice.
influencer movement down there right now. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of like Mormon influencers who have like moved to the island and are like there now. But there is also a substantial population of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like the Pacific Islander folks. Like there's a lot of Pacific Islanders who are Mormon.
yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
So there's also that happening there also. But it's a weird like it was almost like you were like super cool if you got to go to BYU Hawaii. Like it's like
I
the
mean,
cool
come
place to
on.
be.
Obviously, because you're on a surfboard all day, I imagine.
Exactly.
So since you were at University of Utah, kind of along the same line, the question of, you seem like you have a very well-rounded education and really reasonable thoughts around mental health and, just therapy in general. However, there are a substantial number of notorious therapists who have University of Utah in their background. And so one of the biggest questions that I have for you is there any elements of faith mixed into mental health specific majors? And do you feel like, is there stuff mixed in that would maybe cause conflicts, I guess mental conflicts while you're studying there?
It's a good question. I feel like I was kind of expecting that, and it kind of makes me ashamed to be a U alumni sometimes because of all of these other therapists who have also gone there. But
I'm sure there's many great therapists who've gone there too.
There are. But there's like the main difference I think I would say that I see at the U that like other colleagues of mine who didn't go there didn't have is kind of there's more awareness. I didn't see anything that was necessarily a red flag for like, why are we talking about this? Like, this is like, you know, we're a secular university. Why are we speaking about this? But there is more focus on like kind of how you work with that population. Like, you're not like at a university outside of Utah, like you're probably not going to get any like instruction on religious trauma. You're not going to get any instruction on like how to work with this, like, you know, over 50% of the state population. Like, that's the main difference that I saw was we had more of that integrated into like how you do that. But even for that, there was not a lot of like outside of your regular, like, how do you manage your own stuff and prevent it from coming out in the therapy room? And what do you do when it does come out? There was not a lot of like, okay, so let's say you're a super Mormon person working with like a very avid ex-Mormon client, or you're working with somebody who's like in their transition out of the church. And how do you like manage your own stuff and prevent that from coming out with this client? Like, there was not any of that, which was kind of surprising to me.
Okay. How about, so a lot of the people I'm referencing are sort of surrounding this sex addiction community. You know, there's, what is it called? There's like Lifestar, all the Tom Harrison girlies. And a lot of them do come from, you calling it the U? Is that what you guys call it?
Yeah.
So a lot of them come from there. Is that something that they have just latched onto completely outside of the academic background that they have, as far as you know? Like, you didn't receive any sort of education that said, you know, you can't masturbate, and if you do, it's mentally unhealthy, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Interesting.
But it is a largely not kind of talked about area, like specifically, which is shameful, truly, because it is like, in terms of issues that are coming up for this population, like sex, sexuality, that kind of realm is like, it's going to come up, in my opinion, with the majority of the clients, depending on the population you see. And especially with like Mormon women and couples, like that's coming up all the time. And they don't spend a lot of time on like, you know, healthy sexual practices and removing shame from these things. And at least that was my experience at the U. And so like, in my opinion, it's absolutely a way where the church influence bleeds into like your own personal values and perception, which is not in line with like the actual science. Like, science doesn't say that masturbation is like unhealthy and you're going to like die and go to hell if you do it. Like, that's not, like, there's nothing scientific or evidence-based about sharing that with a client. In fact, I advocate that that's like actually harmful if the client doesn't necessarily believe that. Like, it's about knowing like who you're working with, because it's not my job to be like, you know, I don't agree with masturbation. And I'm like, no, yes, you do. Masturbation's good. Like, that's not my place. But it comes out that way almost on the other hand of like, oh, you're masturbating? That's bad. Like, you're not allowed to do that. That can become a sex addiction. And like, McKay knows I could wax poetic about the issue with like the sex addiction thing in terms of like Utah and mental health, but it is like everything. Like, you masturbate once a month and somebody slaps sex addiction on you as a label, and then they're like, oh my God, I'm a sex addict.
Right.
And then it's like, what do you expect to happen with that? It's such extreme shame. And then you have somebody who's struggling even more with a label that doesn't even apply and isn't actually supported, generally speaking, by like things like pornography addiction. Like, there's so much stigma attached to these things, and they just throw them out there with like no concern for how it's going to impact a client.
Yeah, you would say maybe it's not that it's being taught to think this way, but because it's not a focal point, it might be like sort of a blind spot for some people in this realm of therapy in Utah.
Oh, absolutely. Like there was nothing during my schooling, during my master's degree that if I was still Mormon would have challenged that really in any way. Like, there was not any time spent, and maybe there are other programs out there that spend more time on like the sex and sexuality and like healthy development and things, but like by and large, other than maybe like a adolescent development class, like there was nothing that would have challenged my belief if I was still Mormon, which is concerning.
Yeah, it's so it's just I know I keep saying interesting, but it is just so fascinating to me because what comes to mind is my mom was an IV nurse for like 40 plus years, and she just retired, but was sort of like watching like nurses who went to school who had also certain political beliefs, just sort of like not accessing, they're just going like, all this stuff I learned, I don't think anymore. It's just, vaccines are bad, not going to question it because of their own personal like socio-political leanings, and they're called like their education just like went out the door. And I was wondering if that was something that perhaps was happening with this contingent. I don't know what to call it because it's not one group, but we're seeing a lot of different groups of people, branches of people sort of practicing this. Obviously, one of the most notorious right now is Jody Hildebrandt. But it seems like this has been something ongoing for decades, as far back as I know that I had in the questions asked if you had heard of Barbara Snow, because she was, well, let me ask, do you guys know who she is?
I do, unfortunately. And I was going to look today to see if her license was still active because I was kind of curious because I'm pretty sure she's still practicing.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
We kind of joked about like trying to get in for like a session.
Oh, like would she take me
like.
just like a random girl?
Right. No,
I'm sure she'd take my money.
It's wild to think about. And like, I mean, I think I saw a while ago people had complained that she didn't have any disciplinary action like listed on her like licensing page. And I don't know if that's still true or not, but like that's the benefit of having like the system is like, oh, I can look up my therapist and see if they've had any disciplinary action. And then if that's a problem for me, I'm not going to work with that therapist. But like if that's not even listed on there, like there's no way of knowing unless you're going to like start Googling and searching. But like, really, why are you going to do that?
Yeah. And as far as Barbara Snow goes, I don't know what her stance necessarily is on sex addiction or that idea of it. But she, was, of course, a big part of the craze, I guess, of satanic ritualistic abuse, like repressed memory. What is it called? Recovered memory, right? Recovered memory therapy. And that's something that you would probably, as a professional, say is not really considered. It's questioned, right? Like it's not a solid.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's super questioned. Like most professional therapy organizations, like, the regulatory boards who like regulate like the social workers like me and like other therapists, like generally their stance is it's like they're not going to come out and say like 100% don't do it. But it's like it's not recommended because generally we don't have like the science to support it. Like there's not a whole, and memory is also a really just like fallible thing to be working with anyway. Yeah. But there's not a whole lot of research to back it up. But it's also, it's not really, if you don't know, like if you're not researching it, if you're not curious about it, like and half the time people don't even know like the modalities that their therapists are using anyway. So it's like, if you don't know about that and you're like going to a therapist that's using that, it's like in my opinion, there's some risk there. I wouldn't do it personally and I would never do it for a client.
Yeah. Yes, especially because isn't there a lot of evidence that you can basically be convinced that you had something happen to you, like not always your memories from childhood are, like you just said, malleable, and like sometimes
they can implant memories. People could say, yeah, he was the bad man that led the satanic cult. He would take you in the basement, right? Like kind of lead you on. And you're like, I guess, whatever gets this therapy session over with.
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly it. And that's exactly what happened half the time is like, it seems like, especially with the stories that I've read from like the people who went to Barbara Snow, it was that same exact thing. Like, she's telling me this like 30,000 times, and I'm finally going to give in and say, yep, that's what happened. So I get her to stop. But yeah, that's exactly like, that's what they've found with a lot of this research, is that these memories can be kind of planted. And it's kind of, there's a lot of fallibility. I mean, think about why we don't use like expert, like, or testimony witnesses, like eyewitness testimonies and like trials and things. Like, it's like one of the most unreliable forms of like those kinds of forms of evidence. And so it's no different with memory. Like, I won't say that it's not possible to have repressed memories or maybe things that are stuck back there that like, the brain hasn't processed properly, or has, like there's something that could be argued there. But like the retrieval of those things itself, like for a professional to say that they can like with confidence go in and retrieve something like that, absolutely not.
It sounds like auditing in Scientology.
Yeah,
It does.
a little bit.
It does.
In my opinion.
Yeah. It sounds like David Copperfield, like a magic trick or something.
Yeah.
Oh, he's in
Vsauce.
trouble.
He's in trouble?
Oh, don't bring him up.
What did he do?
Oh, what do you think he did?
A magician's a bad man? No way. No way.
Yeah, especially when it seems like when entire childhoods are brought back through memory that you have had previously no memory of, which is, Barbara Snow being Teal Swan, the mental health guru's therapist, Teal Swan's entire childhood, which is pretty easily disproven by a lot of people, was just like, oh, I forgot about all of these insane things like getting sewn into a corpse and, just like little things like that.
I forgot to get sewn into a corpse.
Yeah. I mean, it's fairly wild because generally speaking, and this doesn't happen for everybody, sometimes trauma emerges years even later, like with a trigger or something insignificant. But by and large, when you think about trauma, most people remember what it is. Like, that's exactly why we have things like PTSD. It's because the brain literally won't let you forget. Like, it's not going to allow you. And so that's not the case 100% of the time, but that's why like the whole recovery and memory thing, like to be able to tell somebody with certainty that you can like, I can go in there and help you remember that. And to have like, with everything that was happening with the Satanic Panic at the time, and like to have them all just like so similar and like, oh, it's like happening in the entire neighborhood. And now we've gone like down conspiracy paths. Like it really ran wild during that time.
Good thing that's not happening anymore. Which is obviously a huge problem, not just in the LDS. It's not like all LDS people's fault, but they did. There were a couple people who were integral in the center of the Satanic Panic that were LDS, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
On that note, what's your opinions on the board who oversees the therapist licenses in Utah? Do you think that there's any like ethical conflicts, or do you think that it is influenced at all by the church, I guess?
I mean, to say that it would be completely removed from it would probably be impossible. I mean, I don't know too much about how the board operates in Utah specifically. Like usually when they're doing like disciplinary stuff, like if they're like trying to take away someone's license or something like that is happening, like they usually have like a group of therapists. Like there's usually a decent amount of them. They try to, like from other places I've heard, try to pick people from different backgrounds with varying experience, with varying times that they've been a professional, to like try to keep things balanced and unbiased, because like that's our whole goal. But it's still impossible to like, I think, rule that out completely. And I think it's also like, the joke is when you leave your graduate program, like if you're graduating from a therapy program, like the number one rule that all my professors told me before we left was never have sex with a client. And it's like the most common thing that happens and people actually like get disciplined for. And even some people who do have sex with clients don't lose their licenses. Sometimes they get disciplined for a short period and get them back. And so I don't think it's necessarily a Utah problem specifically. I think there's also a lot of wiggle room as to like how they're going to enforce certain things and what is actually discipline worthy of taking a license and what's not, and who's to say what's 6 months of probation versus like your license is gone to practice forever. Like there's so much, like it's such a subjective thing that I think it's really hard for them to come down like hard and fast on things other than like, you've like something like Jody did where you've done like serious harm and should not see people anymore. But then we just enter the phenomenon that they're also trying to figure out right now, which is how the hell do we regulate the coaching aspect of it? Because a shitty therapist can just abandon practice and go be a coach, and nobody's regulating that. And DOPL, like the Division of Professional Licensing, can't do anything about that. They can't discipline a coach. Like they can take away their therapy license, but they don't regulate coaches, so nothing can happen.
Anybody can basically say they're a life coach, right?
Oh yeah.
It's not
like there's some, I've seen some organizations that will like certify people and things, but you're just like, the protection's not there. The confidentiality is not there. All the things that I'm regulated by that I can get in trouble for if I screw up, like they've got free reign.
Yeah. You mentioned that, this is not just an exclusive Utah issue as far as like ethical concerns with therapists and becoming too close with clients, things like that. I feel like what I maybe noticed a little bit was that it seems like specific to Utah, a lot of the ethical gray area is based more around kind of like magical things. Like I feel like there's a lot more wiggle room as far as, because it's so tied into spiritualism and in religion, that it seems like things that I think would be grounds to not have a license anymore doesn't seem as a big a deal maybe. And that might just be my own view of that, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but do you see any of that being an issue when dealing in mental health? That like basically that's why I was asking about the board, because example, if you're told to just like pray it away and you're like, I have severe PTSD, and you're like, the board would say like, just pray it away. Or
that's magical kind of.
Yeah, I mean, that's the aspect of this where it's like the good therapists are going to be able to recognize when that's emerging and that it needs to not. And, there are some people who seek that out. Like there are some, like, I'm never going to hate on anybody who's like, I want a Mormon therapist because I'm a Mormon person. And I'm like, that supports your values. Like, I get it. But it's like when that interferes in other ways or with like non-Mormon clients or things like, that's when we begin to start seeing issues.
Yeah.
And I think, that's where like the hints of those things, like with Jody, when she was like, initially getting disciplined for like breaking confidentiality and reporting that person to like the honor code office for pornography or stuff that like wasn't even real. Like that's where it's like, this isn't even like your ethical stuff is gone now. Like there's no like your religious superiority complex is like so strong that it's like superseding the ethical things that you committed to do like as a professional, which includes not doing harm. And so that's part of it.
That also brings up another point about my questions about the specific Utah ethical issues where we're seeing these circumstances come up where, like for Jody example, the church is sending people to specific therapists and paying for it, which is not, I guess, illegal, but should it be?
In my opinion, it is a massive issue because we have, like, I don't know if you're familiar with LDS Family Services. That is their, like, all of these therapists work for the church. Like you were employed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and you have to uphold the religious standards in order to stay employed with them. And so if you're in like an ex-Mormon or something, like you can't work there. Like it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so you have a bunch of therapists who are diehard Mormons, and to probably varying degrees. But the amount of horror stories I've heard from clients of mine, clients of other people who have gone to these therapists at like LDS Family Services and just had the most horrific, unethical things that I can even begin to describe, all in the name of like, maintaining people in the church, like to the point where I've had, I've even had friends who have gone to these places and have been like, I want to leave the church. Like, I don't want to be a part of it anymore. And then instead of like therapeutically helping the person where they're at, they're like, no, how do we help you stay? Like, you need to read scriptures more. Like, you need to be going to church every day. Like, you need to meet with your bishop. Like, let me talk to your bishop. And that's where the confidentiality issue becomes a thing too, because it's almost like understood that like, oh, if you're going to LDS Family Services, then they're kind of shaky on confidentiality because I'm the bishop that recommended you. And if we don't have the proper paperwork, I can contact your therapist and they can talk to me. Whereas if somebody came to me, I'm like, I didn't sign a release of information for you. I don't care who you are. And I can't even tell you if this person's my client or not. So that confidentiality standard also goes out the window with that too.
And there's also just like what do you call that? Like the bishop can, if you're having issues, the bishop can set you up with one of these therapists and they will even pay for some of those sessions. I don't know what if there's a hard limit or what the guidelines
Seems
are
to be
on that
different for every
anymore.
therapist.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing with bishop roulette is some bishops are willing to do more for a person if they think that they need more and if they think that it will pay off. And some bishops will just go by whatever guidelines or even less because they don't see the value in it or whatever.
There seems to be no regulation because they can like go to an LDS family services therapist or a bishop can tell them find a therapist you like and then I'll pay them.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's
yeah,
it
so
seems to vary.
the money is coming out of the ward budget, which was given to the church and then allocated from the tithing that the ward gave. And then that's basically going back to the church and then they're using that money to pay the therapist. It's just really
It's a little wild.
sketchy how that works and
The entitlement that comes from that.
yeah. And it would most likely suggest to a person that they should continue in the church because they're giving them money so that they can go to therapy and those kinds of things.
On a slight different question, that something similar happened to Adam Steed, right? He got kicked out of school, right, because of what Jody revealed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I
that
don't think
seems
did she
insane.
work for LDS Family Services, or was she just recommended by?
No, she was recommended by LDS family.
She was on like
Services.
a.
So, I mean, she was practical. Like if the church is your referral source, like you're practically on the church's payroll. Like if you like demonstrate to the church that like I'll get people to stay and I'll get people to not leave, like they're gonna hand that money over to you and go, "Yep, you go for it."
So it seems like the church has more powerful than medical institutions. If you can go to this therapist, this licensed, and then they can essentially tattletale, I know that's not very clinical to say tattletale on you. That's breaking a lot of oaths that you take as a clinical therapist. But that's okay because the church is above it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's exactly what happened with Jody. And I mean, the instance where she got disciplined was, from my understanding, Adam Steed's experience and what she reported to the honor code office to get him kicked out of BYU was actually, according to Adam, even false. And so she's even lying at this point to this institution and has the power to get you kicked out of your church, like, derail your livelihood, derail your schooling. You don't get any of that back. That doesn't transfer to another university. Like they maintain a lot of power. I mean, even speaking legislatively, like if you look at the political makeup of Utah, it's the same thing.
Well, and it doesn't even matter if it was true or not. Like I would imagine that a lot of people would not know that if you went to an LDS Family Services therapist and they went over your head and were telling your bishop something. I mean, if you weren't in the know that that is not allowed, that is unethical, and that they could be disciplined for that, then
you're not going to report it.
Yeah. Or who do you even know to report it to? Yeah. So,
wow.
Jody could have done that several other times and people just didn't know and just flew under the radar for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, knowing what she was doing all the way back with Jesse is just it's haunting.
Gosh. And then they could just call you a sex addict and you're like, oh, I only watched porn once. And you don't know that's not true.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and that's what we feel like happened to Kevin Franke. Like, I don't like the guy, but he probably just thought he was a sex addict because he was asking Ruby to do the deed a couple times a week and she was rejecting him, which is within her right.
And then he still had a sexual desire, which is normal. And then that's like, oh, I'll watch something. And then now that means that I have
or even if he wasn't, like, who knows? I don't know. But
that's the power of that, the manipulation.
Whatever Jody was also feeding to Ruby. So who knows, like, how much was even Ruby's, like, maybe Ruby wanted to have sex too. We have no idea. And Jody was like, no.
Who knows? God,
that whole story is just so wild. And on a side note, the Kevin Franke statement, I have a lot of feelings about it that he just gave, talking about things that I agree with as far as, that he wants there to be more of a rein in, like, legally on the term coach especially in Utah. But I'm coming from an outside judgmental place, but I personally think he still should be held accountable for a lot of things that happened.
The vlogs
absolutely
aren't exactly exonerating.
No. I mean, he was an issue before. They were both an issue before Jody arrived on the scene, and then Jody just imploded it all.
Yeah, and the end of his he had like an interview after the official speech that I watched that he essentially is kind of saying CPS should have stopped me from doing it. Why didn't they stop me from my crimes?
At least.
Yeah. Which, sure, but I wasn't hearing like a whole lot of accountability from him, which I don't know, feels like maybe he should have some, but
Absolutely.
I'm just from some liberal arts college, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
That apparently ranks lower than BYU Idaho.
It does.
I'm sure there's like very bright, wonderful students there. I'm curious about some of the rules that you have to abide by. Like I'm sure there's a curfew and no holding hands.
They lock
I
you
was
in.
actually-
The curfew
lock
locks
you
you
in?
in the building.
If you're on campus, well, I don't think they lock you in anymore.
They used to.
It used to be really strict, but now a lot of the on-campus housing has like scan-in badges to get into the doors. So you're probably going to get caught. But in the off-campus housing, which is where I lived the whole time, it doesn't really matter because if your roommates are really report happy, they can just report you for being out past curfew.
But anything and everything that you could think of that would be a rule is a rule. I mean, they still say no leggings, right?
Only very recently did they begin to allow shorts on campus.
Yeah.
I need to get the details on that one. This is from my sister who is currently attending. But they might be just the BYU Idaho approved athletic shorts. I'm not sure if it's whatever shorts you want. Even if you wore leggings to the gym, you would be usually asked to put on the athletic shorts over your leggings.
And if you report somebody, do you get like more points or something?
No, you
No high
feel
five.
self-righteous.
Entitlement.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little entitlement. Wow, it just feels very 1984 to me.
Get some meal credits.
Some meal
turn somebody
You
in.
would think. I mean, some people are super report happy and will do it for just about anything.
Yeah,
somebody
I
that
knew
told us,
people.
remember the Victoria's Secret package?
Oh yeah, was that at BYU Provo?
I can't remember.
I think it was at
Provo or
Provo.
Idaho, but she got to be like just a Victoria's Secret package. Nobody opened it, didn't know what was in it, and she reported her roommate because it must have been scandalous.
No, it could have been workout clothes.
Literally, like
You can get reported for language. My hair would get me in trouble.
yeah, can't have long hair if you're a guy. No
Or
beard.
beard. There was a big culture of trying to skirt the rule on that one for I think one semester or maybe even two. You could get a beard card if it was a medical necessity.
Yeah, tell me
and
what's
then
medically necessary.
you would have to get a doctor's note after that in order to.
Sorry, I'm not trying to laugh at your experience.
Please
It is
do,
funny.
because it is cry-worthy, honestly.
I mean, I went to an extremely liberal couple. I went to two colleges, and they were both very liberal. And of course, there's issues in any setting and any group of people. But the ethics, what is it called? The moral code, moral office,
The honor code.
honor code, is such a foreign idea to me. Like my college had all gender bathrooms and showers. Like that's where I went to school. So
yeah, that is not even.
Yeah,
they would
Not even the same building.
Yeah, and so I guess is it because if it's a this is a broad question, but if it's a private college, they can just make those rules up.
Yep, and especially so because they have religious what do you call that? Religious freedom. Yeah, like when I worked for the church can be is by the Constitution allowed to discriminate on basis of religion because they are a church.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas anywhere else, you are not allowed to discriminate on basis of religion.
So you can be fired for breaking the rule.
Yep. If you were to work for the church and then you decided to leave, they can fire you. Or if you're not living up to their requirements and holding a temple recommend, which was one of their requirements, then you can be fired. And they have 100% basis for it. No attorney is going to be able to get you a wrongful termination.
That's wild. That's so intense, guys, that you had to grow up through that. Just marveling at you. You came out and you seemed so like chill and normal.
Well, it seems that I don't know what it was finally, because we left while I was attending BYU Idaho online, and I had let my hair grow out because it was during the pandemic and I didn't care. But that last bit of the semester, the honor code office was trying to get in contact with me, and I'm not sure if it was because someone reported my hair or if someone
while you were online.
had seen the content that we were making, and they reported
Oh.
me because we were being apostates
Yeah,
and
I mean, we were
blasphemous and stuff like that.
committing apostasy, but I mean, they couldn't get a hold of him, and they called me. Like they started
Yeah.
calling me to figure out where he was and why isn't he answering his phone, and yeah.
Why
And I
aren't
just
you
waited
taking
it out.
care
It
of
was
his
fine.
hair?
Mhm.
And how did they get your number? Like,
She was my emergency contact.
The church handbook
Oh,
too. Like they could go into
okay.
our
Yeah.
ward and figure it out.
Wow.
wow.
Yeah, they have ways. Like if you don't, we always advocate for people to remove their records because eventually they will come back.
We'll track it
They
down.
will track you down and put your records in the right area, and then somebody will end up contacting you if they can.
Man, you guys. Well, actually, this is just also out of personal curiosity. Did you guys how far away from pop culture were you inside? Like, do people normally in your community, when you were growing up, at least where you were in the church, were people listening to pop culture music? Like, or is it really?
Yeah, it was a little more. I don't know. Even my dad was raised in Orem, which is the sister city of Provo, right next door. And I mean, he was listening to like new wave and alternative when he was growing up and stuff like that. And he ended up moving out here when my parents got married, and my mom was a headbanger. She was back in
really?
her day. So
Oh,
I
she
feel
sounds
like
cool.
out here in Colorado, and even sometimes within Utah, you do get a lot of the pop culture and things.
But it's sheltered.
Yeah, it depends, because I remember singing in the car with our friends from Utah, that one All American Reject song, Gives You Hell.
Oh yeah.
And their mom was like, "Oh, we don't listen to this song in our house." And I'm like, okay, it's like not that bad.
Yeah,
but
that's
whatever.
not a
So
pretty,
it just kind of
intense
varies from
song.
family to family. There's some people who only listen to Disney. Like we knew a family growing up, and they only listened to Disney soundtracks.
And church
That was
approved
it.
music.
All even up through high school, and
Disney's getting kind of woke, though. I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
Well, knowing these people, they are the first one to publicly decry Disney for that kind of
Literally.
stuff.
But yeah, it's like lots of clean versions too.
Right. Are people getting more and more conservative, do you think, in the church? Like
Like doubling down. You mean?
doubling down?
Yeah, I think in a lot of, I thought for sure that there was going to be a schism in 2020 over the vaccine thing. Because when the prophet came out and was like, you should get vaccinated, a whole like droves of people were like, what is going on? We have been so against this. How could the prophet of God ever recommend a thing like this to everyone?
Prophet led us astray.
And then you have the other people in the other camp who were like, the prophet said it's okay, so now I will get it.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But that, I mean,
Huh.
just across the board, because they're doing it like, people always ask us, like, the Mormon influencers, they don't wear their garments. Why don't they wear their garments? And like, even more recently, like, I've always thought that either the church is going to get more flexible to try to retain some of the younger members and try to maybe appeal to more people under their like Christianity misnomer, or they were either going to double down and get more extreme to appeal to the base that they already have. And that seems to be the direction that they're going, because even in garment wearing, it was like there's like a degree of personal revelation within Mormonism. So people would be like, I prayed about wearing my garments and I got the revelation I don't need to wear them, so I don't need to wear them. And then the church caught on to that, and they're like, no, it doesn't matter. It's not personal revelation. You have to wear them, like, period. And that was only a few months ago.
That was in April.
Yeah.
So a question with the people in Hawaii, do they wear the undergarments when they're surfing?
Not usually. There's
Swimsuits are usually an okay exception.
yeah, colloquially there was I think it was like the 4S's, what people would say. This is from other returned missionaries that I was roommates with at BYU Idaho, which was showering, sex, swimming, and sweating.
But
Sweating.
that one is kind of controversial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know people who like going to work out, mowing the lawn,
Yeah.
are just like dripping because you're wearing an extra layer of clothing and it's like hot as hell outside, but doesn't matter. They're committed.
Oof, man. But there's still not a pushback on the influencers, it seems like, themselves.
There, yeah, I was kind of shocked because I figured that back in April would weed out a lot of people. And I mean, my Instagram is completely poisoned with like believing Mormon content and
Yeah.
just fundy brain rot. And I love to wallow in the filth. So, but I still am seeing a lot of these influencers who are just like, I was really hot and I pray to God and he said I don't have to wear them, which honestly, good for them. I love that.
Sure.
Right.
They
I
suck.
don't care.
I wore them for 2 years on my mission in Honduras and it was awful.
Oof.
And I'm a man. It's not as bad for me necessarily. But it is also misrepresenting the expectations within Mormonism and
But it benefits them.
yeah.
So it's kind of like this vicious cycle of like, I have these like cute influencers, like with these cute, perfect families, and people follow them and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know they were Mormon. And it's like, you know, it's like organic marketing that they're doing without even having to do it. So it's like, who's like, are they going to like stop these people? And plus all these influencers, many of them anyway, are like fairly rich. Like people were like, why didn't they ever say anything about like Ruby? Or I'm like, you think about these like big YouTube vloggers. I mean, they're rolling in millions of AdSense money and the church is getting 10% of that. Like, you think they're going to say no to that?
Oh my God, you guys, I could ask you questions all night. I'm not going to keep you here forever.
I wonder if there's like an uptick in people joining the church based on these influencer videos.
I think that's what they think, but numbers are still on the decline comparatively to I mean, you see, like, if you look at, I don't know if maybe we can find the graph and we can send it to you guys, but it's like, you see like the uptrend of like church membership, and then you see the invention of the internet, and then it's just like a steady decline.
Yeah.
Because that's like its biggest enemy right now is like the forces that it can't control on the internet, which is like ex-Mormons sharing their story and people talking about church history and like a truly authentic and not lying about it kind of way. And they can't control any of that.
Yeah, high control groups have a new challenge with social media. You know, people are figuring it out, but it's a new way to recruit people. You can't just give them, tell them, that they're going to meet Xenu if they stay.
No. Yeah, power of information.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to ask them, Directly?
That's it. You guys are such a joy. Yeah.
Ballerina farm hot takes.
Oh man, that's the video that we're filming after this because that.
Oh really?
We filmed
I'm
that
excited.
Video months ago. I mean, I think we filmed that.
Well, you were
back in
already
April,
like
May?
started to kind of put stuff together in like February.
Yeah, I mean, this was a months-long research project, and I was so freaking tired of it by the time we came to the end of it. But now that this fantastic piece of journalism has come out, it's like it's unearthed this again, and it's like McKay and I were talking about it earlier. We've got a new video coming out this week, but kind of this idea of like people are pinning all of this like hatred on the husband in the scenario, and I'm like, the real villain in this story is Mormonism. The only reason he operates that way is because that's what the Mormon leaders have told him to do. And the only reason that she accepts that is because that's what she's been taught is okay.
Yep.
And so like at large, like everybody's wanting to blame Daniel when this is like such, which I think he's
a doofus
and
but
plays like a part in this, of course, but it's like so much larger than that.
I totally, and I appreciate that sometimes it's not looked at as much that guys are also victims in a lot of these situations, even if they are maybe exhibiting some of like the toxic traits that
for sure
sometimes they don't know much else. And so I really appreciate your guys' input and your insight and hearing stories from your own life so that we can try to understand why all of our true crime stories came with LDS background.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you have like specific questions or whatever, feel free to email us.
Yeah, like in the future if anything comes up.
Yeah, I've done a lot of explanations for our friends Fundy Friday on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I love them too. They're
or,
great.
like,
I've never
just
met them, but
church government or whatever, how things operate. So,
but it always
Cool.
like you guys are right. I mean, it generally always leads back that direction, and it's like one of the most common questions that we get is like, why the hell do I watch all these like true crime things? And then it's like, oh, they were Mormon. And it's like, oh, well, of course they were. It's like it's wild how often it happens. So I'm glad you guys are talking about it too.
thank you so much. And I will, if there's something else I can think of, thank you for offering. I'll maybe shoot you an email or something.
Yeah,
no
of
worries.
course. Yeah, thank you guys for having us. This was fun.